Welcome to part 3 of my tutorials about making models in Gmax, and this part 3 is all about using textures to texture map onto the models in Gmax. So you're going to need a texture, and all textures have to be in the TGA format. That's as you can see here in top left, this is a texture of some grey planks, and it's in the TGA format. And also you must make sure that the TGA format, True Vision Targa format.tga, that is, and that also it is 24 bits and uncompressed. Just cancel that, and I'm just displaying this in PaintShop Pro version 7, I think it is, which is quite an old version, but it's the one I use all the time because I'm very familiar with it and it's easy. But so long as you can create or edit an image in something like GIMP or Photoshop, anything like that, then you are quite capable of producing a TGA file. That's just the format in which you save the file. The other important thing about a texture for Trainz is it has to be the power of 2. That is, the size of the object in pixels, and I'm circling down here in the bottom right, you can see the actual size of the texture is 512 by 246 by 16 million colors, and a total size of 384 kilobytes. So the size is really crucial. It has to be a power of 2. So in other words, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, which is the one of the dimensions of this one. It's 256 pixels that way, and then the next one up from that is 512, and this one is 512 pixels this way, and then beyond that the measurements 512, so 1024, 2048, and so on. But this size is about the best size, I think, and this is 4 grey planks, as it says there. These are meant to be weathered wooden planks, and although there's only 4 of them, it's going to be enough for us to produce a reasonable reproduction of a planked shed of some sort. So that's the texture that we're going to use, and you just store that in the same folder as you are storing your Gmax model when you make it. So it's just there in PaintShop Pro just to illustrate the textures that we use, and all textures have to be the power of 2, and they must be TGA files. The other aspect about them is they can't be a single color. You have to have more than one color, and of course there's many colors in those grey planks. Otherwise you'll find, especially with the very latest version of Trainz, Trainz in New Era, it's error testing will automatically throw up an error if a texture is just a single uniform color. So if you wanted to paint something a particular color, then you've still got to have variations within that in order for it to load properly. Okay, so that's what we're going to use. Well, let's just come down here and load up. That looks odd. Have another go. There we are. There's Gmax. So that was just sitting down there, my good old graphics card, having some fun and games with it. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our good old box again. So I'm going up to the top left here and selecting in standard primitives. I'm selecting box, and I'm just doing the usual thing of holding down the left mouse button, dragging out the base, and then letting go, going up and clicking once with the left mouse button again. The mouse button. Okay, so there we are. Now we're going to import that texture, and the way we do that is we use this button up here right at the end. Okay, this is the Gmax Material Navigator, and we're going to be using this. This is another area which another button that we're going to be using quite a lot of. So let's click on that, and it loads up a little window here. Okay, and you can see there there's nothing in there at all at the moment. and we're going to use this button here on the top right, which is the same as this button here. Does the same thing, Gmax Material Editor, and it's just duplicated here. So let's click on that, and that will open up another pop-up menu somewhere in the middle here. There it is, the Material Editor, and we're going to make a new material. So we click on New, and it's going to be a standard material. So we come down here and we just click select standard and click on OK. That produces all sorts of things here, and we're going to call it, that's its name at the moment, material number 1, because good old Gmax doesn't have a clue what you're doing. So we click on that and we just type in planks so we know what we're doing. And this button here is to allow us to see, it says show map in viewport, because technically what we're going to do is going to be mapping that texture onto our object. So this is the button to use. Don't worry about these. We're going to map in the viewport. This is just the viewport. We're going to be able, so that means we're going to be able to see our texture. So we'll do that. We'll agree to have that. Don't worry about this. Don't think I've ever used it. Probably does wonderful things. So I might have used opacity, but I can't remember. Anyway, now we come right the way down here to maps. Okay, so maps, and the one that we're after looks very complicated, and in fact we only ever use usually 1, maybe 2, or on rare occasions 3, but the key one that we want here is diffuse color. That's the one we want to select, the second one down on that menu. So where it says none, we just click on that. It brings up yet another little pop-up menu, and there's going to be lots of these, or a fair few of these, at least another one, and it's going to be a smaller version of this material navigator over here, look, and it's going to be a bitmap is what we want. Okay, so that's going to be, so we click on that, go OK, and it brings up a dialog box which looks fairly familiar. Essentially what we're doing here is we're navigating to find the texture which I just showed you in PaintShop Pro. So this is a conventional Windows window for finding these things, navigating these things. I can't remember what the proper name is for them. And if we look under here, these are all my different folders for all the different varieties of models that I'm making. And this particular, our grey planks, is under GWR broad gauge, and then under Brunel wooden bridges and viaducts. But obviously it's going to be on whatever you, wherever you stored your file. You just need to be able to navigate to it. And we select grey planks. There it is, and you see a small version here. Don't do anything else with any of this, just tells you what it is there. Make sure always that it's a power, not a multiple, a power of 2. If you don't know the difference between a power and a multiple, look it up on Google. So it has to be a power of 2. And click on open, and something's happened there. Well, what's happened there is that it's given you the details of that particular map, and it's changed the number there. If we look here over to the right on the material navigator, we now see that our texture is called planks, which is what we typed in, and within it is a texture, or is a material, a map called diffuse color map 1 grey planks. If we increase the size of this, you can see that quite clearly. Grey planks TGA, and it's showing, because in this window we're showing not just the materials, which is this one, because it's the material navigator, remember, we're also showing maps, that is the components of that material, and the list. Well, we don't really need to see, that's just the way you order it. We don't really need to see that. It can be quite confusing if you've got lots of textures there. So we just unclick maps and it just doesn't show it anymore. It's still there, but it doesn't show it. And if we come back over here, this is that particular map. That one, just click back there. It's this one here is now showing over here. Let me click down there, you can see planks and map 1. So it's map 1 that we're looking at. Okay, but we're not displaying maps there, just tidy it up out of the way. And you can see down here is the where we can find that particular texture. grey planks, there it is, and it's in that folder, Brunel, bridges, wooden bridges and viaducts, and that's under something else and something else, and so on. Okay, so if we wanted to change that, then if we changed that, edited it in PaintShop Pro, and we wanted it to update it in the program, then we just use this and click on reload. But there's nothing else to do here. So if we just go back to planks, and now under maps we've got our grey planks and a little tick to show that it's enabled. If we just scroll that up a bit, nothing else has changed. There we are, it's all the same. And the important thing there is 100%. So if we're going to look at we can see the whole texture 100%. It's not been reduced in its reproduction. That's all we need to do with the material editor, so we can close that, but we want to keep this one open. Just tuck it away a bit, and let's go to make this one full screen so that we can look at it quite in more detail. So, move it around a bit, and I'm zooming in and out, by the way, by using the wheel on my mouse, but I hope by now you've worked that one out. Okay, so let's put some texture, let's put some planks, let's make this out of planks. Well, we come back over here to our main menu where it says standard primitives and all the rest of it, and the different types of primitives. But what we want to do is select the editing for this modification, this button over here, the second one in on the left, for it to modify what we've selected, which is this box. Okay, so here's our box, and it's 151 feet by 83 feet by 63 feet. So let's just tidy that up a bit first. Let's make it more like the shack or whatever it was I was doing in the second tutorial. So I'm making it now 12 feet by 10 feet by a height of 7 feet. And enter. There we are. So there it is. And also let's customize the grid and snap setting. Home grid, let's make those grids, these are the grids, make them just 1 foot square and a fit line every 10th. So there we are. And then remember, from going up to our select and move button here, select our item here, go into the third button, which is the hierarchy. There you go. I did not know it was called the hierarchy. I just assumed it was. I always called it just the third button. Hierarchy, and click on Effect and Pivot Only, just as we've done in the previous tutorial. Center to Object, Align to World, and then still with the Modify, Select and Move button, just come down to our positions down in the bottom right here. The X coordinate 0, Y coordinate 0. And the height at 3'6". Well, just remind ourselves, how high is this? Over to modify, 7 foot high, so 3'6". It's half a 7 foot, so it's already there. So the center point on that is already at the correct spot. It's just good practice to make sure you're doing that. Right, let's have some fun with applying some texture. So first we'll use the Select Object button up here and select your object and choose the texture that you want to put on the object, and you can only put one texture per object. There you can add others, but it creates a lot of maps underneath that. That's what they call a composite texture, and it can get really overcomplicated. I tend to prefer, if I need to have something, say, with a different texture on that front face, I tend to like to have a separate mesh for that and not join it to the rest of it. And so long as it's absolutely in the correct position, then you don't notice it in Trainz. If you actually looked at an object in Trainz, you'd find there are all sorts of odd single faces like that floating about and laid on top of each other. I like to do that when I'm doing windows for a low poly warehouse or something like that, but I'll come on to all that. So there's our object. Let's get texture in. So come back up here to the top right to the material navigator, select planks, and then we've got another button that's now become available. That's the Apply Material to Selected Object. You click on this and bingo, there we are. That's it. Very straightforward. So we've got 12 foot by 10 foot, and 7 foot high, and we've got planks on it. Fine. Except of course it's no good at all, because the planks are all in the wrong place there. We've got horizontal planks, and this is going to be a shed, so we want vertical planks, and there's a really weird bend in that. But what it's done is just applied the texture same size onto each of the faces of the little square. And if we look at it, we can see there's 4 planks on each one, but we don't want 4 planks, and also we don't want them horizontal. Now this is the time consuming bit, because the way in which you use the texture on your object is what gives it the look of the actual object in real life. So we have to really look at this very carefully. So the next thing we need to do is to come back over to our modify. We've already got it open. We've got box there because that's all we've created so far. Now instead of editing the mesh, which we did in the last tutorial, and move things about, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to take an ordinary box like this and apply the texture to make it look much more like a vertical boarded shed. Now I know there's going to be no door or window or proper roof, but this is just to show you how to use the first basic texture. Right, so now the editing button that we need to press is this one, Unwrap UVW. Okay, so we're going to click on that, and this gives us a number of parameters down here. Okay, and if we have a look there, there's a plus sign. That means if we click on that, we can select an individual face. If we have that selected, then all of it is going to be done by our mouse action. But if we select a particular face, then only, here we go, there we are, it's nicely outlined in bright yellow, which makes it much easier. Then it's only that face that we're going to change. Well, let's click away from the face for a moment and come over to these parameters. Essentially there are just 2 buttons here that are crucial, and you're going to use a lot. It's the edit button at the top of the parameters and the planar map button down the bottom, and I'll explain those now, because first of all we want to be able to edit the way in which those textures appear. So we're going to come along to this button. Even before we do that, it doesn't look right. Bold. I mean, it's we know very well that our texture is straight along, not got that weird effect. And this is one of the things you've got to do with get used to in Gmax, is you've got to get used to correcting the texture just for your own viewing. It will be correct when you output it, whether it's showing with that sort of line or not, but just to see it in the viewing. There we are, look. So if I turn texture correction off, and what I've done is I've gone up to the name of the window here, and I've right clicked onto it to bring up that menu, and those are my options. It's the same one that you would use to change it from perspective view to something else, which I think would be, I've never used disable, but I can't imagine what you'd use that for. Maybe somebody's clever enough to know that. Wireframe, that's the one, the other one I tend to use a lot, switching between wireframe and smooth and highlight. So it's always right click on there, come down to texture correction, and what it's doing is it's applying a bit more of the processing power of the machine, of the PC, just to correct the display of the texture on your viewing. It's already correct as far as the output would be, but of course it's still only 4 planks and they're still horizontal, so we've got to change that. So this is where we come into edit, and here we get another window. You're going to love these, and you're going to spend ages resizing them, but once you're in the window you can use your mouse button just to pull it back so you can see the whole of it. And you can see there that you've got a bounding box, plus you've got these across there, and essentially if you see that, it means it's looking at multiple faces at once. So the best thing to do is we're just going to do this first one. You've selected a face, so select it there, and then there's a number of options along here on the bottom of this, and a number up here which we're going to come to. But essentially you just want it to display the single face that you're going to edit here. And so you come down to this little widget here, the filter selected faces button, and click on that, and you're left with one face. And believe me, it really is just one face. that is showing there. Now sometimes what happens is that you might only get Gmax for some reason isn't displaying the whole text, or isn't loading the whole texture across the whole of the face, so you maybe only seeing 3 and a bit planks as opposed to 4. But to make sure that it's correctly displaying, as indeed it is here, so we're not going to see any change, but it's always good practice to come back over here to our parameters. Remember, we're still in select face parameters, we used edit, we turned this on with edit. Come down to planar map, and that will automatically correctly display that texture across that face. So we just click on that. Doesn't seem like it's done anything of any great importance. Believe me, when we come to more complex shapes, we're really going to need that. Okay, so there we are, horizontal flanks, brilliant. You know, what do we want? Well, we don't want them like that. That's what we don't want. So there's a number of options here, quite similar to those that are up here in the main toolbar. Well, this is the toolbar for edit UVWs. So we've got a move, which is for moving. We've got a rotate for, you guessed it, rotating. This one is for scaling, that is to reduce it in proportion. This one is for flipping it mirror horizontal or vertical. If you hold the left button down on that one, you can scale it in one direction horizontally or one direction vertically. Or if you hold the button down on the mirror horizontal, you can mirror it horizontal or vertical, or take it and rotate it around the display. I don't think I've ever used that one, or any of these. Looking at it, no, I never bothered to look. Well, that one can be useful. Tell you which map number you're using. If you want to know what the number refers to, just come back over to your material navigator, click on maps, and see we've got quite a bit there now. That's why I'd like to turn those off, because they can be confusing. And it's map number 1, and that's repeated there, you see. But I prefer it like that because it's much easier. Keeps it as clear as possible. Down here, what else do I use here? I think I use the hand. The hand's quite handy because you can. Hand's handy because you can move this. Don't think I use anything else. Right, okay, so we've got one. I don't think I use those either. These can be useful. These are for the positioning. Okay, so that's going to be, well, we'll see how that works out in a bit. Come back to those. But meanwhile, we're still stuck with our horizontal flanks and we've not got a step further. So let's go up to rotate, and we've got the, you can see the little red squares mean that the corners have been selected, the key parts of the face have been selected, and let's rotate. Okay, now it's rotating all over the place. And look what's happened over here. It's just a mess. So that's no good. So let's go back and let's turn on angle snap toggle, which restricts our rotation to 5-degree increments. Click on that, come back with the rotate, and now you see it clicking round, and it means it jumps around 90 degrees. So although we're looking at this and it's horizontal, that face is now seeing it as vertical flanks because we've rotated the flanks. And this again is something you've got to get your head around. Remember how you're displaying it. So for example, if we just select here this button, the move button, and we was to select just those two, so we deselected those, and we went up vertically. But what we do is we make sure it's only vertical because we've got options here. Look, we can move it in any which way we like, or we can move it just horizontally or just vertically. Let's choose just vertically, and just a 2-pointed arrow up and down, and let's just go up. There we go. That's about a plank's width, isn't it? And suddenly we've got a 5th plank. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And that's because what's happening is that Gmax is now has finished, as it were, with that edge of the texture, and it's started coming up this way now with this one. So it's like there's another texture here is now laid up there. And if we were to set that vertical to, so I'm down in this measuring one here, vertical to 1, it brings it back down. So that's 0 and that's 1, and that's because we've only selected those. And if we were to then pull it out a bit and use our move, or just move vertical, and change that vertical to 2, then instead of having just 4 flanks, this will jump up here and it will reproduce the whole texture again, give us 8 flanks. There we go. And if we think those planks are still too big, then what we can do is come over to down to our vertical measure and go put 3 times in, and it jumps up again. And they're now beginning to look much more like the width of the planks you get in 12 feet. In fact, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we've got 12 1-foot planks. Well, I think we need them a bit smaller than that, because I don't think we use 1-foot wide planks. I think we use about 8-inch wide planks. So let's put 4 in there. That's 16 planks now. And what's happening is, you can see, if we go down to here to rotate the image and we zoom in a little bit, you can see that all that's happening is that the same texture is being repeated 4 times. And the texture this way, horizontally on our edit window, has been stretched to whatever height that is. So what we might like to do, got to come into here, click on the hand, otherwise I can't move anything, and then we use the move or any select on there, and we can't, I think it's this one, probably get it wrong, but there you go. This is for the horizontal measure, and we'll put, instead of 1, because it's going from 0 to 1, put in 2 down here and press enter, and it jumps out. So what's happening is, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4 times the texture has gone in, 1, 2, 3, 4, we've actually put in 8, because we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's repeating the texture again and again. And you've really got to be careful though, because otherwise you end up with what looks like a tartan effect. So you've got to be a bit judicious with using these, but at the same time, it's the best way to texture is to try and reuse the texture as many times as you can throughout the whole object, because every time you include a different texture, and you can have multiple textures. If we go up to here, we could have a whole clatter of textures down there. Then every time you use a texture, it means it's going to be exported with your mesh, and it's going to add to the size of the model, and certainly that will be a hit on your graphics, and it will slow down Trainz itself. No matter which version they bring out, the graphics are the thing which really slow up the running, especially if you're running multiple Steam engines, because they take a lot of different textures to get them going. Okay, so that's the texture there. So that's that one face done, and we've got all these others to do as well. So if we have a look at this one, well, maybe we want instead of 16 planks, we just want 12 planks here, but it's still facing the wrong way. So let's come back over here. Getting this window active can sometimes be a little bit awkward, and it's best just to click. You'll see the little hand has been grayed out, so unselected. So what you should do, the pan tool, so what you should do is just select it and click in there, and you'll get into the background, and then you'll get this this active again. And now we've only selected the one face again. We were working on that one, we're now working on this one. So here again, we can go up to rotate. We're still on the 5 degrees only at a time. We need to, using the rotate tool, there it is, that's the rotate tool, and we've selected 4 points, and we can, I mean, if I was to leave it halfway, that's what you get. I suppose you get that sort of like old Midland Railway fencing was always on the skew like that, wasn't it? Always on the angle. But anyway, let's take it on round to a 90-degree turn, and this time we want 2 that way across, so we want it repeated twice, so once there and then once more, and instead of 4 times up to give us 16 planks, we just want 12 planks. So even though we've got the rotate one, we can still select those and come down here and put that in 3. So 3 fours are 12. Even I can work that maths out. And there it is. You see, I can't rotate it. I can't zoom in and out with the rotate with the wheel on the mouse. So click on that again. It can be a bit irritating, this edit. And I can't select anything with the hand once I've got it selected. So you know. So I'm going to select the move vertical, even though I'm just going to use it in order to highlight, to select those points, and to go to the right, to in. And there we are. You can see here that that's worked very well indeed. And we've basically been able to put planking around 2 sides. And now you have to laboriously do the rest. It can be a bit of a pain. There are quicker ways of doing it, but at this stage do it face by face until you are confident that you know what you're doing. So first thing here, into the edit, we just select that face. There we go, and we're going to rotate. Interesting, look, that's not selected. And although we're going to go up on this, we're going to go along here. So up on this is vertical, B. Okay, now we select that, and now I can rotate in and out, zoom in and out with the mouse. You get to do this automatically, it really is second nature. And then something to select just those 2 points, so it deselects that point, and then the U. I wonder what the U stands for. Anyway, out there we are, that's the same as the other face. And now just to complete the picture, wow, we discovered something. Looky here. If we now just select our tool selection tool up here and select the face there, it's already done it. This often happens. It doesn't always happen, but it often happens. Sometimes it happens and it's really hopeless. It's really the wrong way. It's done it the wrong way. So you have to redo it yourself. The other thing I should have been doing, of course, is hitting planar map every time I selected a face. So let's have a look and see what would happen now. In this one, if I hit planar map, you watch here. I'm just going to go over here to the left and click on planar map, but you watch on the right there. Whoops. So what it's done is it has, that's the one we want, the little pan button. So I can zoom in on this window. Oh, yeah, I can actually do it with that as well. Oh, happy days. So what it's done is it's just laid that face, or it's laid the texture on that face exactly to the orientation of the texture and its size. So let's have a quick look back around the other side, see if it's done anything there. No, it's left that one. See that bit there? It's left that perfectly okay. And you should really planar map each face in turn at this stage. So back into the edit, click on our rotate. We've got them all highlighted already, so we can just rotate round. There it is, and back to the pan handle, and select the move tool. Select the move tool. There it is, and we want to go up just 3 on this, didn't we? Because we wanted 12 planks, and we want 2. Want it repeated as it were in 2 layers to give it a bit more detail. Because that's the other thing, if you just lay a texture on there, then you're limited by the detail at that level of the texture. But if you're laying in, if you're putting in, what is it, 6 iterations, six copies of the texture, then it's 6 times the detail, even though you're repeating that detail. The only thing then to sort out is to make the roof look like it actually is the same as the wall. So we'll come up to our select tool here. Although it says select object, because we got face, select face highlighted, we just left it highlighted, it's only going to pick up a face. So there we are, that's the top. And we've got to decide what we're going to do with this, because here's just the top selected. The reason why it's only the top selected is because I've kept that turned on, which is the filter selected faces, which means it's only looking at the ones that I select. And we're back to our pan, and the next thing we're going to do is make sure we use planar map, that it's all laid out okay. This might seem like it's very pedestrian, but when you get to strange shaped objects like spheres or cylinders, then you're going to find that this is invaluable, the planar map, because it's going to allow you to manipulate the way in which the texture appears on the cylinder. And for example, if you wanted a locomotive boiler with lining, nice neat lining, say you had a nice Great Western Railway green boiler and you wanted it lined across the boiler, then this is what you would use, and you'd have to do some quite fiddly manipulation with the texture. So let's make sure planar map, and it's okay. Anyway, nothing's happened to it. So, and it's still highlighted, so and it's in the correct direction to line up with these planks. So all we need to do there then is to select one of our move tools, and because we've got 4 lots of the texture going that way, so we go up to 4 and pick up our hand, pick up our move tool, select the 2 on the right, and making sure, so that was the vertical. I know it's not showing 4, but if we were to go here, there you go, there's your 4. Come over here, hit 2, enter, and there you are. And that looks like it might reasonably be a fit between the planks on the side and the plank on the roof. What else can you do? Well, you can do all sorts of silly things really. If we were to select the move horizontal, there we are, and shunt it along like that a little bit, that would all change a little bit. The important thing is that the texture allows for tiling. So that's what you're doing, you're laying down like tiles for your kitchen or your bathroom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles, big tiles. Each of the tiles is a texture, is this texture. So it's like you're tiling your kitchen. If we come back up to here to edit UVW, hold that button down and select that one, and we've got all 4 selected. Now if we go in any direction we like, if we go like that, then if we're not careful, if I do that, then we're going to get a bit of a plank there and another bit of a plank there, and they don't line up, and we're all over the place. So that's why this is really important, because the final effect of the look of your model is going to really depend on the way in which you texture it. So just looking at it like that, quick way to restore that is, you can muck about trying to fiddle around doing this if you want to, trying to position it, but if you're not really hitting it and it's driving you crazy that you can't get it back to where it should be, just simply select the bottom 2, and there, look, vertical, you've got a minus figure, so just highlight that, 0 it, highlight those, and it was 4, remember, it's not 3.964, 4 we want, and then highlight those 2 on the left, and it's minus 0.01. Well, that's the 0 position on the left. Oh, that's good, I managed to type the wrong number in. Oh dear. 3, there you are, back to 0. And over here it should be not 1.987, it should be 2. And there we are, and we're back lined up. And that is very basically what you do in order to add a texture to a very simple shape indeed. And what I would advise you do is make a box, make a texture, load it in as I've shown you how to load it in, and then edit the box. This is the modify the box rather, and select add above box, add unwrap UVWs, and then with the box selected, choose your texture, click on it there. Remember, once you've select your texture, you just click on it there to apply it. Apply material to selected object. This is your object, this is your material. Stick that on there, you're telling it. And then go into select face, use edit to bring up that window, and then use your ordinary selection tools to select a face, and off you go. Try that. Try it also with a cylinder, and try it also with a sphere. Try it with a teapot if you like. I mean, if you want to be, you know, here till doomsday doing it, but just try it with those and get a feel for how textures are applied, and you'll realize that whenever you're making a particular model, assembling the textures that you need for your model is a job you've got to do before you even start making your model. So it's not just diving straight into Gmax, it is also all about assembling the resources you need to create your model. That will, apart from textures, could well be scale drawings of a locomotive or of a building or whatever. So you gather all those together, and that's the way in which you then proceed. And remember, all of those textures have to be the power of 2 and .tga targa files. Save them in the directory where you're saving your model. I'm not going to save this model, but that's all for this tutorial, all for part 3 of this tutorial. The next tutorial I'm going to do will be about splines and extruding, and this will take us into, if we go back over to our basic, let's click away from this model, this box, this will take us over here to our create button, and instead of standard primitives or geometry as it's labeled there, we'll be going into this one, shapes, scary world, and this just gives us splines and line, circle, arcs. Not a clue what angon is. Text, well, we know what text looks like. Rectangle, ellipse, donut. I've never used the donut. I think I might use a star once. Helix, never. It's these, basically it's going to be the rectangle, the circle, I think maybe perhaps the text once or twice, perhaps the line once or twice. Rectangle and circle, again, very basic shapes you're going to use in order to adapt a mesh to fit what you want it to do. And we're going to make, I'll show you how to make the chimney of a steam locomotive, which can be really quite hard. Okay, so we'll come back to that in the next tutorial, so I hope this one has been helpful. Please do subscribe to the channel, it all helps and keeps me inspired to do more of these.